one of the questions I had is, would you agree, yes or no, that too many people are caught up into the system that HR has created for job finding? So Bo said yes, and anybody else that wants to share their feedback on that, that would be great. Because what this is all about is how to be in charge of your own career strategy. Well, Ryan, you said that it seems that way. I'm not sure of another way. There is another way, and it puts you in control of your future career. You don't have to follow the HR process. Jim, yes, the ATS scanner is brutal. And let me tell you, the funny thing about that is that when you apply online, you go through an applicant tracking system. And if your resume, which you've worked so hard to include keywords and customize, if it reaches a recruiter, they are not decision makers. They're gatekeepers, and they decide whether or not they're even going to interview you from an HR perspective. So today we're going to talk about how you can get in contact with hiring managers and get in front of them. I've been doing this for a long time, and there are 3 areas that I can see that all of us need to improve on in order to make it happen for us. And so my name is Penny Pearl. My company is To Actify. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself so that you know about my experience. And, obviously, I would like you to understand that I've been working with a lot of clients and have seen what's happening. So before I do that, you should also have a tab with a question mark. So we're going to save questions to the end. We're going to have some time for that. And you can put your questions in there. I'll try to get to as many as I can. But if I miss because of the timing, then you'll definitely get an answer via email. So I want to start by saying that no one has more interest in your career growth than you do. And you have the power to make it accelerate faster. You need commitment, you need discipline, but you can make it happen. And you do not have to depend strictly on HR. You're going to depend on your network. And I'm going to share with you some strategies that are going to allow you to be in the room with a CEO or a hiring manager so that you can talk about how you'll make an impact for them. And ultimately, find hidden opportunities where the competition is less. I'm not sure about you, but when I read the news, like CNBC does a whole career thing, and there's so many articles now that I see where people are just applying like to thousands of jobs, eating up their time, and can't even get an interview. That's really sad. So something's got to change because that is a very broken system. So my introduction to networking, I'll tell a quick story, was I had just graduated from college. And in those days, you saw an ad in the newspaper and they actually would post their telephone number. So I made a call. I got an interview with somebody at a hotel. They were looking for somebody in the HR department, actually. And quickly during that interview, it was determined that I was more of a sales type. So the woman that I was working with gave me a referral. She said, go on over to the Marriott and go talk with Jeff because I know he's looking for somebody in sales, and that seems to be where your skill is. So I ran over there. The woman in personnel asked me to fill out an application. They did it in those days too. In fact, they were more dependent on it. And I was in the small room filling out my application, and I hear Jeff come into the room, and he says to the personnel representative, can you tell her that I'll talk with her later? Tell her to fill out an application, and I'll get to her later. Well, upon hearing this, I stepped out of the room where I was filling out the application, and I looked at him and I said, look, I'm here, you're here. I'm qualified for this role in sales. Why don't we just sit down and have an interview? Well, you could pick his jaw up from the floor because I was confident, and he saw that demonstration of confidence and leadership right off the bat. So it isn't only what I say, but also what he experienced. We sat in the room, we talked about the position, I talked about my qualifications for it, and within 5 minutes, I got the job. And I was there for about 1.5 years. So that was my first introduction to networking. And it's so much more effective when you can talk with the person that has to make the decision. And that's what this is all about. A little bit about my background. I've been a certified coach for 13 years. I started out with helping higher ed institutions. In fact, I'm still working with Rutgers University. They have a special program there for their biomedical scientists, and I'm part of that program. Actually, the way I got into it is through networking also. And it was pretty immediate because somebody in my network introduced me to my contact at iJobs. And within minutes, she said, I'm very interested in this, because she had an issue, a challenge, and I was able to satisfy that challenge. So then I moved, in addition to that, to working with business executives. And I have listed some of the companies that those executives come from. I started out with technology executives, and then started adding operational executives. I also work with marketing and sales executives as well. Those are my primary clients, and they're in leadership, or they are aspiring leaders. Because what needs to be done is you have to be really committed to doing something different. In fact, just putting this webinar together, I had to do the same exact things that I'm going to share with you today. It's a different way of doing things, and you have to do the work and move into an area of maybe doing some things that you're not used to doing or feel uncomfortable, but you will get your results faster. And you always have to walk your talk. I always walk my talk. I'm continually networking. The 3 areas that we're going to cover are strategic networking, presenting your value proposition, and communication that is effective, clear messaging. And that's how you're going to get an inbound offer pipeline, where you have a strong network who wants to engage with you, and you're going to find opportunities that are not advertised. This is how you skip the HR hiring queue. Now, it doesn't mean you don't apply online at all. You can still do that, but you're not dependent on it. You're dependent on yourself. And nobody, like I said in the beginning, knows the value that you offer more than you do. What you want to do is you want to talk with the hiring manager, the person that makes a decision. And with practice and some of the principles I'm going to share today, you will be able to pivot, answer the questions with confidence, and just remember that, those strategies do take practice. You see so many people who want help with their resume. They want somebody else to write it because they can't think of the value themselves or don't know how to word it. But knowing your value is really important. And then they think of interviews. So they think of resume and then they think of interviews. But there's a whole lot of learning that make you the exceptional standout candidate that happens in between. I'm going to ask you to stay on the webinar because I wanted to let you know there are some things that I'm going to share at the end of the webinar that are going to be really impactful for you. I've saved some of that for last. So today I have a couple of career programs going, individual career strategy programs, where I work with individuals who are willing to invest in their own career, even with the knowledge that they're going to have to go through a change, a transition, and be outside of their comfort zone. But that's okay, because that's how growth happens. Wouldn't you agree? And one of the things that I have learned so much is that when even executives, you're in a company, you've got a great title, you have a team of people that respect what you do roadmaps, you execute roadmaps. But when it comes to your own career, there are so many people who they don't know where to begin. They don't know why or what statements to make in order to get somebody to hire them. They know that networking is important, but not exactly sure where to take the first step. And that's what my goal is to help individuals take the first step and then start easing into the things that work so that you create a lot of career activity. Years ago, I met a young man who was in college, and he said, I've been to all the career centers and gone to all the programs, and everybody says, you got to network, you got to network. And then he said to me, and this always stuck with me, everybody tells you to network, but nobody tells you how. And this is what I'm going to show you today. So the other areas that we work in are this program for developing a pipeline of interviews and developing a pipeline of career activity that leads to job offers and interviews. And we're really going to get more and more into interviews, because it's the natural step. Once you know how to get to decision makers, what to say, and create opportunities for yourself, you really want to do well whenever you have that opportunity at that final stage. Here are some of the testimonials that my clients have said based on our work together. And I'm just going to point out the part in red or the part in orange. But if you look at that, career strategy, maintaining a strong network, easy to follow, building my network, turned interviews into job offers, strategic networking and value propositions, make my own opportunities. And agents, I am my own agent in the design of my career. And this is also from a client. And it's a great way to get to hit the ground running, because during this career strategy learning that you're going through, you're going to develop confidence, you're going to know your value, and you're going to be able to pivot and adapt to anything that's being asked of you, so that you can talk about how you're going to solve a challenge. And you need to do that with the decision maker. Many of you know that, but how do you get into the decision maker's office is something else that requires confidence, clear messaging, really good communication skills, and certainly knowing your value. So let me just point out these three areas that where value and networking come into play. Leaders who proactively demonstrate their value will stand out. So you need to understand your value. A lot of times people sound just like everybody else um, because they're using the same words. They're not really promoting their specific value and impact to the role. You need to do that in order to stand out because you don't want to sound like everybody else. Your leadership opportunities are going to come from people that know you for sure, but also what you know and how you address your challenges. So it's who you know and what you know. You've got to deliver that. If you don't deliver it, they're just going to know you as a friend or a colleague or a peer. You always need to find those opportunities where you can share what your value is to them. I have a little story to tell you at this point. One of my clients, who is an operations executive, was doing his reach out to his first degree connections. And when he did that, he was feeling pretty good. You know, he did the 10 a day that I was asking him to do. He and I got together and I said, well, how'd that work out for you? He said, well, we had great conversations. It was a lot of fun. They were really receptive to having the conversation. My question to him was, what happened after the conversation? What were the action items? And he looked at me a little bit befuddled and said, I forgot to ask. I forgot to focus on the goal, the objective, which is to get referrals and get introductions and have some action items. So then I said, well, what are you going to do next? And he said, I need to call them again. Well, that actually worked for him. He was able to get back to them and steer his conversation toward a goal, and then ask the right questions, present his value to some of the challenges his connection had. And he wound up developing a lot of career activity and finding a new role not too shortly afterwards. But this method of communication is a very squiggly line initially, but if you're confident enough to practice knowing your goal and then working toward your goal, thinking about a strategy in your communication, then you're going to get the results of rekindling relationships, getting introductions, which might be in that person's company, or it might be somebody they play golf with. That is where your hidden opportunities are going to come from. And then being visible is essential, because the way you become visible is by sharing your impact and value, both when you reach out to a company as, you know, a company that you're interested in working with, or even inside your own company if you want to get promoted. You are still in control of talking about your value and creating opportunities for yourself. Today, you hear so many individuals saying, you know, I don't feel valued at my company. My boss doesn't mention anything, you know, when I go for a review. Well, it's really up to us as individual to ensure that our value is known. And it's not bragging, but it's the impact that you've made. So keeping track of that is really important throughout your career. Even if things are going well and you don't plan on leaving, I guarantee you that 3 years from now, when you decide to leave, or there's a layoff at the company as an example, the value that you had today won't be remembered. Maybe you helped the company increase revenue by $3 million. Are you going to remember exactly what that number is? So keeping track, we have a value proposition worksheet as part of our tools. It's going to allow you to keep a record of the impact that you've made throughout your career. Have any of you kept track of your value proposition statements? I'd love to hear that in the comment section or in the chat. If there's anything that you recall that you've written down, or do you just do it by memory? So maybe put in the chat, do you write it down, or do you put your value and impact statements in, you just keep it inside your head and hopefully remember that. Okay, well, I'm going to share with you the 3 areas. Let's see. Jeffrey, thank you for responding. I note all accomplishments and values in a running working document so that I can refer back to it for future opportunities. Very smart, because it's so easy to forget them. Louisa, I've only completed the value proposition once with your worksheet. Definitely need to update. Absolutely, that's true. A lot of times people don't see their value if it's not specifically related to revenue, and that's not the case. In other words, you're not a salesperson per se bringing in revenue, but you, through your work, had an effect on bringing that new revenue in, and you need to make a statement about what that looks like. I'm going to show you some examples so you can see the difference between somebody making a general statement that doesn't resonate necessarily with the listener versus being very specific about your value. So what this whole thing is about is positioning yourself so that you can be in demand. And you need to do that through presenting your value. Dharmesh, hello, Dharmesh. You said, good point. I don't do that, but many interviews are based on value. Amazon interview is very value-based. That is so true. And in fact, you have to tell stories a lot of times in order to present your value using the STAR system, where you describe the situation, task, action, and results. And it's very important that knowing your value can be applied to many different situations and questions that you need to answer. So an in-demand executive positioning means that you have a system for presenting your value, which could be the STAR method, using your value proposition statement, a process for networking, and a strategy for communication. All of these 3 things are so important as you go through your career. And it's not a straight line, it's a squiggly line. But the more you do this, the faster you're going to get to reaching your goal. I've had many times a client initially that says, you know, this isn't working as fast as I thought. This is like within a week or something. Their expectation is that they're going to automatically get to the end result because that's what they want. But it does take developing confidence by knowing your value. And it is really a confidence builder, as opposed to applying online, which drains your confidence. And when that happens, you can't perform during an interview really well because you're feeling like this is just going to be another lost opportunity. So you need a system for presenting your value, which we'll talk about, a process for networking, and a strategy for communication. The system for presenting value is expressed in a qualitative or quantitative format. So a quantitative format would be your value would relate to an increasing revenue. So when you write a value proposition statement to say you increased revenue by X, or the program that you were involved in was able to deliver new revenue because you finished the project sooner. That would be a qualitative statement. But if you use a number or a percentage, then it's just a different way of expressing that value proposition. But value equals, ultimately, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, increased revenue, increased productivity, reduced expenses, increasing cost savings, or improving customer service. All of those lead to a company making more money and able to scale. So every time you talk about something that you did, it's important that you don't relate it to just a task, but the impact that you had that caused something to happen that was good for the company. And that's what one of our tools, the value proposition worksheet, does for you. You can keep track online. It's a PDF, and you can keep track of that. Louisa said, also like Jeffrey, I do a similar thing. He is the person that logs his value proposition worksheet, or his own log. But what Louisa does is she updates her main CV resume that I can pull from later. Okay, that's a perfect way to do that, because in a resume, your value needs to show up. Your value needs to show up on your profile. It has to show up in conversations and certainly in interviews. But it's all those things that you've done before that are going to give you the practice and the confidence to express your value to the person you're interviewing with, to their challenge. So let me give you an example of somebody who had this in a resume, and it was about their value proposition. And this happens more often than not. People don't really understand how to make themselves stand out, and they write something that is not understandable. Partnered with the sales organization to take a customer in view to identify the priority global SaaS offers and implement a security compliance baseline for them to improve overall security posture. Very difficult to understand exactly what this person has said. But he does have, he or she, it improves overall security posture, reduces the risk, and enables market access across the globe. That can be said, I think, a lot more simply. And what happens is people get lost in the words. You're not really being specific about the impact that you made or had an effect on. As opposed to this statement being a value proposition statement, directed 100 team members plus 8 senior leaders, which means this person is a leader. They did it for breakthrough, transformational results that generated $3 million of new revenue and increased partners and client acquisitions by 20% in 60 days. So this one is kind of loaded. This is loaded with quantity value, but there are ways to express this qualitatively as well, where you don't know the numbers. This is what helps create demand and offers for you, because that person that you're talking with needs to understand the value that you're going to provide to them. A process for networking is to be able to reconnect and connect. There's a system for that. You want to go to the right audience, and you need to provide a clear message, knowing what to say and how to say it. And then strategic networking is where you have a goal in mind You know you're going to get there, and it's a squiggly line at first, but ultimately at the end of that meeting, you're going to get an introduction to a hiring manager where you'll do your research beforehand, but you're going to have the opportunity to sell yourself, sell your value in front of somebody who makes a decision. That conversation is also going to be a win-win. You're going to give and you're going to ask for what you need because you're presenting yourself in a confident way. This creates demand and offers. When you get to an interview, you're going to be so good at this that you're going to nail those interviews, and you're going to have choices about which job is best for you. So there are 10 things to know in a career strategy that I have put together based on my experience. You have to take a unique approach. You cannot just do it through the HR system. You need to present your career value and impact. You have to keep growing your network and deepening the relationships. You have to own your value. Strategic networking systems help you find hidden opportunities so you're not competing against thousands of other candidates and going through applicant tracking system. Your communication needs to be strategic, and that's what's going to ace those interviews. Interviews are golden. So having that practice of strategic networking is very enlightening. You need to track yourself. Who are you reaching out to? And are you reaching out to enough people where there are so many people you're reaching out to? Some of them are going to have the door open, or they're going to say to you, your timing is perfect. So you have to reach out to a lot of people, and you need to say the right things in those messages. Strategic networking can be win-wins, and they should be, because it's a conversation where both parties benefit. And you're going to network broadly through personal branding and posts. And there's ways to do that also. But none of the above matters if you don't take actions. So I am a very action-oriented person, and I help my clients become action-oriented also, because there's some accountability there. So, but these are the things that you need in order to advance. Don't wait for other people to recognize you or just follow the pack. You will have control of your career strategy when you do these things. Now, I'm moving quickly because there are some other really important things that I want to share with you. Here's an example of ineffective networking communication. Hi, John. I've been following your company's success under your leadership, and I would love to learn more about some of your initiatives. Let's connect and set up a time. Well, I don't know about you, but what I see is somebody who is talking about themselves versus what they can offer to the recipient. And I see this all the time. Many times, even leaders do this in their written communication. And what happens is they take a subordinate role to who they're trying to reach out to. But what you need to make sure of is that whoever you're communicating with wants to meet with you because you've said something very compelling for them. It's all about them and what you can do for them. And this certainly doesn't do that. You do not want to put yourself in a subordinate role. When you're a leader, especially, it should be a leader to leader communication. This is a much more effective way to communicate. Say, John is the CMO. John, I've been following your company, and it's clear that your marketing programs are targeted to the X audience. I've successfully delivered huge revenue growth for my company in this same market. Let's have a brief intro so I can offer you some insights for the growth you're aiming for. What do you think about that type of letter coming from you? Does it show that talking with you is worth the chat? Okay. Well, let's go on because there's more to this story. I'm going to skip this one, but generally, I wanted to make sure I talked with you about assumptions. A lot of times, when we verbally or in writing communicate with somebody else, we assume they know what we're talking about. And making those assumptions means that you're not connecting the dots for the individual. They may not say that to you, but that's what's happening. Their mind is somewhere else. So it's really important for you to make sure you connect the dots using a clear message about how you make an impact and how you can help that company, that department, that individual in the hiring position. So a career strategy that creates demand and a pipeline of job offers is where you're going to find hidden opportunities. Your expertise is going to stand out. It just becomes really evident because you are connecting the dots. Your interviews turn into offers. You're asking really good open-ended questions, and they really want to have you on their team because you're talking about the value. And you know, another thing about that is when you do really well in interviews and you have a lot of job opportunities and career activity going, you're not afraid to ask the tough questions. You're not afraid to ask about their finances, the things that are going to be important to you when you're on board, and you get to make decisions. In one of the testimonials I shared with you, one of my clients had 2 fantastic offers. It was gut-wrenching for him to make a decision, but ultimately, he chose the best company to work for, and it was great that he had choices. So you receive multiple offers and you speed up your career trajectory because a lot of people want to bring you in. They know what you're good at because you're always talking about the value and the impact that you have through clear messaging. So, how to create your inbound offer pipeline is a career strategy that creates demand. And I wanted to share with you that, you know, over the years, I have been working with many clients. I've identified these areas where people really need to um, perfect their value proposition and stop being afraid to network, because having a strategy to do that is what's going to land them those interviews for hidden opportunities. So I created a course. It's called the Best Career Strategy Course Ever, because it really is. There are 10 lessons, and it covers all those things that I listed earlier in those 10 lessons. So it's, you know, an online course 24/7. It took me about a year to develop it. And but I really wanted to include the things that people need to learn in order to promote their value, find those hidden opportunities, get introductions, and do really well in interviews. And this is how you're going to land your dream job. All the points that I brought to you earlier are things that I have seen through the years of working with individuals. People are shy. And sometimes it even starts at the LinkedIn profile level. They're not really sounding different than anybody else. And that's what it takes. If you sound like everybody else, you're going to be dependent upon a system, the HR talent acquisition system, that is very broken. So confidence, promoting your value, meeting people, saying the right things, being clear in your message, and not being afraid to say, who else in your network can you introduce me to, is key. I'm going to share with you more information about what this entails. But before I do that, I want to find out, do you see some of the areas that maybe you can improve on and maybe take on so that you're not dependent upon somebody else to make a decision whether or not you get into a company or not? And also how you can be more effective when you talk with people so that they want to bring you in. They want to make an introduction. I hope you can see the value of doing that. But it's really not about hope. It's about necessity. We all have a career. We all want to grow. We want to scale. We want to get better. And depending upon other people is not going to get you to where you want to be. You really need to depend on yourself and make the transition to be out of your comfort zone. But you can take it in baby steps, and it gets better and better and better. That squiggly line becomes more of a straight line. And you will get to the point where people say, what's going on here? I'm getting approached by a lot of people. You're creating a pipeline of individuals that want to have you in their network as a resource and offer you a position. So let me go ahead and show you how you can learn more about this course. But if you feel like you deserve your dream job and also have a pipeline of other offers going on, if you are okay with delivering high value and return on investment, if somebody is considering you for a role, if you feel that way about yourself, then this is something that is going to perfect that. And if you're the type of person that invests in yourself in order to grow your career, that's really important. Many times people expect that recognition, but you can create that recognition by sharing your value. And I guarantee you that you will become more confident and you will impress people that want to bring you into their network when you are confident and clearly make a statement about how you can make an effect. So it does require a commitment, and it is challenging work, but it's going to affect the rest of your career. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you in the chat what the link is to learn more about it and get some more information about the course. It's not a huge investment, but it's going to create the change that you're looking for. So what you'll get with the best career strategy course ever. Do you remember when Google first started and they went for investment and the investor said, why should I invest in your company? Their answer was, because we're going to change the world, which made a lot of sense. Well, that's kind of why I have named this course the best career strategy course ever, because I think it's going to really affect the people that I'm in touch with, how they approach their career and bettering themselves and taking those baby steps in order to really project their leadership and value to other companies without waiting for somebody to select them. That's really what it takes. So when you sign up for the course, you're going to get 1-year access, all the lessons and tools, upgrades. We have a lot of tools now, but we're going to be doing adding a lot of tools and using AI tools as well. That's all going to be included. And you'll get announcements as to when they're available. But it's a continuing course. We're offering a special introductory price. And every week I'm offering Zoom sessions so that you can answer your questions. They're going to be live Zoom sessions because I really want everybody that I'm working with to learn these principles and help them through that, where other people on the webinar can learn as well. I'm also offering, it's going to be a price of $397, but through December 5th, I'm offering it for $297. And so that's $100 off. And I'm also going to be offering 30 days of an AI interview method tool called My Star Method. It's going to help you in interviews and conversations with human-like feedback on your presentation of storytelling using the STAR method. For those of you not familiar with STAR method, situation, task, actions, and results in a very high-level strategic story. So you're going to get 30 days of that free when it becomes available. We're still working on it, but everybody that signs up is going to get that if you do it within the period before the 5th of December. And the first 3 individuals that register, I'm going to offer a 45-minute one-on-one strategy session. So that's, I think, really going to help you focus on the areas that are really going to make you a standout as you network and build your pipeline of job offers. So if you're interested, the next step is to go to the link that was provided, and that's where you can sign up. And there's more of a description of the course and what you'd be getting for $297 for a full year. And at this point, I am going to go to the Q&A. So you would hit your question tab, and I'll do that too. And I'm happy to answer your questions. Right now, I don't see any questions having been asked. So is there anybody that has a question about primarily the value that I had hoped to present to you in the webinar, that you really need to approach your career strategy with a system and not just haphazardly? Leaders, you know this, when you go to a company, you're asked to create a roadmap and execute. It's the same thing with a career strategy. And this is going to help you do that more effectively and faster. Okay, well, if nobody has any questions, then please go ahead, go to that link. Feel free to email me if there's anything that I can help you with, answer a challenge. Then, I also, before we hang up here, I do want to thank my team for really helping me to put this together, because it was a huge effort. I had to do a lot of the same things that I'm talking with you about. And it was a transformation. Sometimes these uncomfortable things are what allow us to grow. And I want to say also, I hope all of you have a wonderful holiday season, and especially this upcoming one on Thursday. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help you with your challenges. And if you're interested in the course and have some questions about it, certainly I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for your responses, and I'll hope to talk with all of you soon. Bye for now.